National security experts are racing to fix a hack on Microsoft's on-premise security servers.
Microsoft revealed that a Chinese state-backed hacker group called HAFNIUM exploited vulnerabilities in the email software in the United States.
January 5th, 2021. An employee at a security test company, DevCore, reported a flaw to Microsoft in their email security software. The flaw was so massive that the tester boasted on Twitter that it was the most serious security vulnerability he's ever come across. The exact details of the exploit were kept secret, yet the next day on January 6th, an unknown exploit was being used against Microsoft's email security servers exchange. It turns out that a component of a massively popular software was vulnerable to an attack that could let hackers install a backdoor into email servers using Exchange. Microsoft Exchange is used by almost every business globally, and it is basically the email gateway within an organization's network. It is responsible for sending and receiving all emails, processing calendar invitations, and more. This means that anyone who can get their hands on the Exchange server can do everything from reading and stealing all of their emails, but they can also use it as an entry point into the victim's entire internal network. So, if an unknown group of hackers have the ability to steal information from almost every business around the world and place backdoors in their network, then clearly Microsoft Exchange has a very big problem. For the next month, security researchers analyzed and investigated cyber attacks involving Chinese backdoors being dropped into Exchange servers. Since the attack was a zero-day attack, there was little information released to the public and no way to defend against it. Zero-day attacks is a broad term that refers to vulnerabilities where developers have only just learned of the flaw, which means they have 0 days to fix it. Microsoft was racing to fix the Exchange flaw that first reported to them, but they were running out of time. Microsoft announced they would release security updates to Exchange during their routine patching schedule, which occurs on the second Tuesday of every month. In this case, it was March 9th, 54 days after the initial vulnerability was reported. But HAFNIUM, the Chinese hackers behind the attacks, weren't too excited about this. Their earlier, secretive but targeted attacks in the last month suddenly turned global. On February 26, HAFNIUM accelerated the backdooring of vulnerable servers by scanning the entire internet at once. We're talking thousands of servers compromised per hour all around the world. Their zero-day exploit was now public. This brought worldwide attention to their attacks, and 7 days later, 30,000 organizations in the US and hundreds of thousands worldwide now had backdoors installed. A week earlier than previously planned, Microsoft released updates to plug the zero-day vulnerabilities in Exchange due to the attacks happening across the entire internet, but it was too late. The backdoors meant that it didn't matter anymore whether the Exchange vulnerability would be fixed or not. HAFNIUM no longer needed to exploit the servers. They could simply connect to the web shell they initially dropped, and they would have instant access to the internal network. The web shell allowed a hacker on their local computer to initiate a connection to the infected server. It's an easy-to-use, password-protected hacking tool that can be accessed over the internet from any browser. A hacker's primary goal is to obtain a shell, as they are used as a means of maintaining persistent access to a compromised system, even after other malware has been removed. Now that HAFNIUM had successfully infected hundreds of thousands of servers, they could remotely watch and control the internal network of the compromised organizations. They also performed additional attacks, such as harvesting the credentials of all their employees, creating themselves user accounts, stealing copies of the company's user data, and laterally moving around the network. The lateral movement was one of the most dangerous aspects of their attacks. They used the infected Exchange server to spread to other machines within the network and to search for administrators' computers or servers. This is where they could begin the next phase of their attacks, or Stage 2. Security experts around the globe were biting their nails waiting for what was to come. They were filled with a mix of dread and anticipation. It was only a matter of time before HAFNIUM entered through the back doors they placed on hacked servers and began the real attacks. HAFNIUM had access to absolutely everything. Firstly, they learned about how their victims operated by reading all of their internal email communications, and they even impersonated themselves as high-ranking employees. Remember, HAFNIUM is backed by the Chinese government. Because of this, they had a special target in mind. This was the government and military sector. A quarter of HAFNIUM's attacks involved siphoning critical information from here, so they could gain political and military advantages. Secondly, they could also just encrypt the entire network of organizations and hold them at ransom. If their target was not worth the effort of siphoning out all of their secrets, they simply locked all of their files and requested cryptocurrency for a key to unlock it, which could have cost tens of millions of dollars. But HAFNIUM knew their free reign wasn't going to be long-lived. As the chaos unraveled and the inner workings of the vulnerabilities came to life, other hackers wanted to join in on their fun. By March 9th, a week after the security update was released by Microsoft to fix the vulnerability, 100,000 of the 400,000 Exchange servers around the world remained unpatched. By this point, 10 other cybercrime and espionage groups similar to HAFNIUM were observed exploiting the newly exposed Exchange flaws for their own purposes. It became a race for hackers to do as much damage as they could before other hacking groups encrypted the network or cybersecurity teams removed their backdoors. There was no reason why hackers who had access to a zero-day wouldn't simply press a button and exploit every possible target across the entire internet. It was like the Wild West, where anything goes. Hold on a minute. How did the exact vulnerability DevCore shared with Microsoft end up being exploited publicly prior to Microsoft issuing its updates? There was now a bounty on HAFNIUM's head. No one knew who they were, and no one knew how they managed to get access to this critical security flaw. By March 12th, just a few days after the patch was released, Microsoft began their investigation. They wanted revenge against the hackers that caused them millions of dollars of damages and many sleepless nights. But HAFNIUM did not leave behind much of a trail. There was only one small lead that they could really follow. Microsoft shared concept attack code privately to antivirus and other cybersecurity firms, so that their partners could better protect their customers once Microsoft addressed the vulnerability. But it appeared that some of the tools used in connected attacks starting a week later were almost identical to the attack code they privately shared. One of the 80 partners in their private group had inadvertently or intentionally leaked the information. Eyes were on the anti-malware partner in China, since the exploit was dropping Chinese web shells onto infected servers. It actually wasn't the first time a Chinese partner had been caught leaking vulnerabilities, yet there was no solid proof to solidify the claims. The investigations led Microsoft to reveal the identity of the hackers as HAFNIUM. The same hackers who historically targeted entities in the United States for the purpose of exfiltrating information for espionage activities. the US government formally recognized HAFNIUM as the hackers behind the reckless and dangerous attacks. But the Chinese government responded by denying involvement, calling the accusations groundless. This is despite the fact that deep investigations tied HAFNIUM's operation closely to the Chinese hacking group APT-40 and APT-31, which are backed by the Civilian Intelligence, Security and Secret Police Agency of China, the Ministry of State Security. But let's save analysis of these groups for another video. Years after the attack, it's likely that secret backdoors into companies are still being accessed, and sensitive information stolen has been used to benefit hackers or even governments for malicious intent. To give you an understanding into what information they're after, groups associated to HAFNIUM have been observed hacking naval and maritime companies, stealing intellectual property in order to boost China's warship design and construction efforts. The group is still active today, stealing sensitive information from countries across the world, but they are tracked publicly using different names like Bronze Mohawk, Fever Dream, Green Cash, and many more. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, let us know what you think about the HAFNIUM group.